not so much money to be around, and we're looking forward to your input now. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor and it's a great joy for me to be here in Berlin today. And please allow me a few words in German at the beginning of my talk, and then I will switch to French, if that's okay. Well, today, it is not business as usual. The war is back in Europe, and peace is threatened, our safety is threatened, and yes, democracy is at risk. And today we see what my friend Olaf Scholz called a Zeitenwende. And in these special times, it is our duty to introduce new ideas, to find new solutions, and to create a hope for our countries and our citizens. And it is our duty to develop a new strategy for the economy of Europe, a strategy that focuses on growth, on well-being, and a sovereignty for Europe and all the other states. And we need fewer discussions and more decision.
I will, first of all, make a statement without any concession concerning the European economic situation. Europe is threatened by a downgrading in economic terms. We have a growth which is too weak. We are 1.5 percentage points below the United States, and this is unacceptable. It is unacceptable economically speaking, and it is dangerous politically speaking. It is not an accident of history. It's now 10 years that we have a growth which is below that of our American partners. And this is unacceptable. We are too slow. We are too slow in innovations, in particular as far as disruptions are concerned, and more particularly as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. Our productivity, which was our strength in the past, is going down. It is declining in Germany, it is declining in France, it is declining all over the Eurozone. Our energy is too expensive, so we don't have enough energy. And the Ukraine war has provoked an energy shock, which is without any equivalent since the petroleum shock in the 70s. Guillaume Faury, as the CEO of Airbus, have pointed this out all the time. During the Ukraine war, the energy price has increased by 254% in November, then 54% in the US, 5% in Asia. How do you want our industrialists to be competitive in such an environment? And our European business model of the 20th century was based on simple principles: free exchange of goods, total energy dependence, opening to the other markets, mass consumption rather than mass production. And this economic model of the 20th century is obsolete. The rules of the commercial game have changed, and they do no longer exist, actually. Nobody respects them anymore, neither China nor the United States. Europe is the last to observe its own rules of the game, and the theory of these rules is very clear. The last one who respects the rules that the others do no longer respect has lost the game. And this is the threat under which Europe is, which means, and this is the absolute urgency, we need to invent together, the Germans and the French and the Germans, other business models, other European business models for the 21st century. And this is an urgency And this is imperative. It is a must. And it can only happen between the French and the German governments and with the scientists, with the industries in both countries. You like it or you don't. The Americans have a business model, and that is protectionism. You like it or you don't. The Chinese have a business model, and that's interventionism. Where is the European business model, and who could define it in one word? And I would like to propose today not a pret-à-porter model, but at least some pillars for this European model of the 21st century, with 6 concepts, buzzwords, which are provocative, deliberately provocative, because we need audacity, we need courage, we need movement, we need willingness, we need to believe in ourselves. The first term is risk. For years, for decades, we always try to be we need to be cautious. And I want to put forward risk. We need to put forward risk. After war, Europe was built up on coal and steel. Now we have to build Europe on the basis of artificial intelligence. And I make this proposal today in Berlin. Let's create the European community of artificial intelligence. Let's accept to innovate before regulating. We have a passion for regulation, but I prefer innovating rather than regulating the innovations of the others. Let's innovate and let's have the right intermediaries. Let's welcome the startups, and it's this creation of the European community of artificial intelligence. Let's take not only the scientific aspects, but also the energy aspects, because interceptors have these high energies, and this is the same energy than a city needs when it has 500,000 to 1 billion. We have to talk about risk and innovation also in other fields. Take, for instance, the space example. How was it possible that the United States had 10 years of lead in the spatial field? Why were we not able collectively to take the risk to have reusable rockets used for the space? I am in charge of this, and I have read notes in English, in Italian, in French, in German, who all explained already 20 years ago how we can have this rocket startup mechanism which can be reused. And that is the Falcon 9, which is 10 years ahead, because we didn't take the risk at the time to reuse this system. And let's not be naive. Falcon 9 is, of course, a private initiative, but it has had billions of subventions and subsidies from the United States government and the administration and NASA. So let's pool our forces. We have done Ariane 6 together with Germany and France, and will there be another option for tomorrow? No, don't criticize, but build together. And let's make Ariane 6 successful, and let's have a reusable system to get it started into the space. We are ready to compete. If you have your own development, you love competition, I love competition. Let's go for this competition for these renewable systems, and may the best win. But once the best has won, we need to cooperate together, because competition must be the first step before the cooperation between Germany, France, and Italy, and it must not be the prelude to a confrontation between European nations. Let's be very clear about it. There is not place for 2 of these rocket start systems. There's only a place for one common one, and this is which we will build once the competition will be over. And just to give you the measure of this challenge for this risk, every year China builds two new nuclear reactors. It opens 40 gigafactories for semiconductors, and it has thousands of new railway tracks that are being created, and it's putting together 900 million of electric cars. Let's take the same risks. Let's decide quickly, let's decide strongly, and let's decide together. And the second term is a very simple one. That's money. We need money. And I cannot take away anything from what Olaf Scholz said on the Capital Market Union. So China has massive support, and the US are going to invest a huge amount of money in the Inflation Reduction Act. That's two big continents, and we can have the same products with wind power, with photovoltaics, with electric cars, with green hydrogen at a price that they will have 30% lower. If we do not succeed, we will be dead. And this is the true challenge. So let's earmark the right funds so that we can be back at the level of the European continents, the Chinese. Let's wake up, because it is time to wake up. How can we do it? Of course, we need public funds, and that's the Next Generation EU. And I have been surprised to see that if we have to protect our citizens against COVID, we were able, at the time, Olaf Scholz was Minister of Finance, and we were able to break everything. And we know how to do it differently. And we have to have common debts to protect. When it is about protecting, we are always together. When it is for innovation, we are not staying together. Why does Europe not have the same initiative to finance new technologies in the same way as we did when we financed the COVID crisis? And the public funds will not be enough for a very easy reason. We have to re-establish our public budgets and our public accounts. And it is not easy to be Minister of Finance in France, and even if we want to re-establish it. So it's not about austerity. I do not believe in austerity. I do not believe in rigor for France. I do not believe in rigor for Europe, but simply so that the money be used well for innovation, for competitiveness, and for the protection of the most modest ones and the weakest ones. So it is also indispensable that we focus on private funds. And from this point of view, it is indispensable that we move forward with the Capital Market Union. And let's be concrete. I propose to my friend Christian Lindner to have a joint European project. Let's have also a European savings product launched in Europe for the benefit of our growth and for the benefit of our activity. We have 35,000 billion of private savings. So the money is there. It is there, but it's not where it should be, because we do not have the Union of Capital Markets. And 1/3 is simply sleeping in deposits. 1/3 of this money finances the American economy. Great European money which finances the American economy. Well, I propose that we move forward with the Capital Market Union with Germany and others. We should launch a European savings product, and so to finance in this way our own innovation. And then we come to the supervision of the European capital markets. There can be divergences between Germany and France about the supervision of the capital markets. And these differences must be overcome. It is a question of political willingness, and that we can move forward on the common supervision of capital markets. Otherwise, we will not have a union of capital markets, and without the capital market Union. Our startups will be born in Berlin and in Paris, and they will grow up in Washington and in San Francisco. And that is not what we want for the European future. And I also want us to continue to have the insurance principles change. What we have done is not sufficient. Every time that insurers spend €1 on innovation, they have to put aside capitals and they waive it. Here too, we need to take risks, and we should have innovation in the prudential principles for the insurers so that they can also help us finance the economy. There's a third term, is the removal of red tapes, the debureaucratization. We have become in Europe a giant task red tape producer. We had the best machine tools, the best planes, the best chemicals in the 20th century. We continue to have the best planes, and I prefer the situation of Airbus rather than that of Boeing. And I rather want to fly Airbus than Boeing. And this applies also to my family, by the way. In the 21st century, Europe risks only to produce the best standards. That's all we can produce. So there's a vital urgency to re-establish a better balance between the production and the standards. So we have broken the inflation on prices. Now we should break the inflation of standards. Together with my friend Robert Habeck, we want to work on this reduction of red tape. And that's why I have a third proposal. Germany and France should work on an omnibus directive, and this will involve the review of all the standards affecting our industries, and to get rid of all standards which are obsolete or superfluous. That independence in the next term. We need to have a total energy independence, and we have to draw the lessons of the recent past of the Ukraine war and the impact it has had on the European economy. There is no economic success without a decarbonization and safe energy and low-priced energy. Nobody can pursue its industrialization. Nobody can do green hydrogen, cannot have the decarbonization of its industry without a massive, I repeat it, production of decarbonized energy at a competitive price. And it's nothing which should involve moving from one dependency to the next. So moving from the Russian gas to the photovoltaics or the wind power from China. You know the French government's position, and I am happy to be in Berlin. And I adore these days in Berlin. I do not want to talk about conflicts, and I believe in nuclear energy. I do it because between friends, we should have an open and frank discussion. We believe in nuclear energy, and we respect the sovereign decisions of Germany, but you must also respect ours, of course. We are going to build new nuclear power stations because we believe that nuclear energy is indispensable to reindustrialize our country, and we must have it also on the European level. And we have research on the new reactors can be financed by the European Investment Bank. And the fifth term is confidence, it is trust. Well, it is political in terms of terminology, but it is essential. And I come back to what Olaf Scholz has said. Let's trust in ourselves. We are not an annex to Washington. We are not a target of Beijing. We are allies of the Americans, and we are commercial partners of China. We are old but great powers, economic powers, and Germany remains the third or fourth economic power in the world, and France remains the fifth or sixth the economic powers, one with 86 million, the other one with 68 million, because we have a heritage, a cultural heritage, a technical heritage, a scientific heritage. And that means that we have to pursue our ambition. We have to believe again in ourselves and in the European construction. Let's look at what we have done together. We have new value chains that we have created. We have also have electric batteries, factories that we have created despite the dependency on China. And we can catch up on the back here. Look, we have in the space, and we have also succeeded in creating in more efficient and fair fiscal system. But this is not yet implemented in it should be. And I would like to think of Wolfgang Schäuble in this connection, who has left us. So where are we going? Where are we heading for? Well, let's look into the geopolitical realities of tomorrow. Let's move forward in the 21st century with open eyes. America is and will remain protectionist. Whether Joe Biden or Donald Trump will win doesn't change anything to the protectionist policy of the Americans. The Chinese will remain interventionists, and they will continue to subsidize their production. And since production is slowing down in China, this means that all the solar panels, the wind power, and the electric cars will reach the European market, which is the largest market on the planet. So we need to have devices and systems to rebalance our commercial balance. And I do not believe in protectionism, by the way, but I believe in the level playing field. I do not believe in closing borders, but when we ask a big factory, an aluminum factory, to use an electric furnace and not a gas-driven furnace or a coal-driven furnace, which will mean 5-10 billion of investment, it is legitimate that there is a carbon tax at the border to compensate this surplus and keep our industries in our countries. Let's rely on our strengths. We are the first commercial market of the planet. The Americans need us, the Chinese need us, the United States need our consumers, the Chinese need our consumers, so we can have a relationship of force and strengths. Let's just be aware of our power. We need powerful nations. And by way of conclusion, let me tell you that I believe in Germany. I believe so much in Germany, and I believe in the German-French cooperation. Everything is changing. One thing which has not changed is the German-French friendship and the strength of our cooperation.
Of course, I'm aware that this is a wide field, a vast field, but I continue to be optimistic for France. I continue to be optimistic for Germany. I continue to be an optimist for the cooperation between our two governments and countries, and I continue to be optimistic for the future of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the optimism. You found the right tone. Gregor Waschinski, I'm the correspondent for Handelsblatt in Paris, and we will have a short talk.
And we will do this in French. And we start with the differences between your speech and the Chancellor's speech. He talked about the commercial cooperation with the world. You mentioned the protectionism and the interventionism of US and China. Is there a difference between France and Germany concerning the European sovereignty. So I have it's complementary visions. We want to remain a commercial power, and we need to be aware of one thing. The climate transition has a huge cost for industry. If you have to do a decarbonized plane and 30% less expensive, when I ask Mittal to invest 5 billion in the aluminium factory, 25% more expensive. So I'm ready to trade, but we need to have a level playing ground. When a vehicle has been produced in a country where aluminium comes from factories fired by coal, must be taxed. Otherwise, we cannot be competitive with the same weapons or arms. But we need to have a level playing field to be able to defend and protect our industries. You talked about ambitions and risks, and you said the real risk is the decoupling of the industries. So you mentioned still risks. So did we not do enough during the past 2 or 3 years to address this? Well, we are in the middle of it. There are many positive things in what we have done. We support our industries. We have the carbon adjustment mechanism, and Europe has changed its ideology. But now we have to also go the rest of this path which has been taken. And the Capital Market Union has an absolute urgency. We need to advance on this. If we do not have the Capital Market Union, a company like Mistral, created in France, a startup in AI, which has algorithms and logistics which are just as effective as those of Google and Microsoft. It could get 100 million, 200 billion, 300 billion in France, and tomorrow it will be 1 billion or 10 billions it will need. When we have the Capital Market Union, it will be fine. If we do not have the Capital Market Union, this company will leave for the US. And also the vaccines were invented in Germany. Our scientists found it, but for the industrialization, for the opening up of factories, it was the United States, because investments of 10 billion were necessary. Don't stop in the middle of the advancement, but let's make space for the right investments. I know in the German political field, the break of indebtedness, of debts, is a very important one. We can, of course, keep the debt break, but we should also invent the accelerator for investments. Let's remain with the Capital Market Union. And the Chancellor mentioned it. And you were also with Christian Lindner last night and said it's one of the big topics between Germany and France. And my question is there really a joint concept behind it? Because there's also a topic like supervision of the financial markets and the insolvency law, where there are divergences between France and Germany. And how do you think that we will move forward? Well, there is a political willingness, and that is the first time that the German Chancellor, the President of the French Republic, who come to the fore and place the Capital Market Union as a priority on the agenda. And when there is a political willingness, there must be a way, and there will be a way. And you're absolutely right. We have to look into the insolvency law, and I don't want you to fall asleep by talking about insolvencies, but we need to find solutions. And the second major topic is supervision. We must guarantee that European supervision will not become more complex, but will be effective and simple for the banks, the investment companies, and the insurers. I hope that by the end of 2024, we will have made major progress for the Capital Market Union. And then there is the break on indebtedness. So this term does not exist in French. And so it has not been requested in France, but how there are massive economies and savings to be made in France. How can you keep this balance between investments and the recovery? Well, the Schuldenbremse, was a break on indebtedness, is a part of constitution, and the only person who can hold the debts in France is the Minister of Finance. So I do not do this to penalize, and I do not want to hurt anybody in France. I simply do it because we have re-established the public accounts, and we went to the right deficit levels, and we had two crises. We had inflation and COVID, and we protected the French population. It was legitimate, and those who blame me for having spent too much in France are the same who told me you should have spent more to protect our salaried and to protect our companies. Now we are back to normal, and my responsibility to have serene responsibility to reduce the spending, reduce the deficits, and to define a long-term objective to come to a balancing of the public accounts. And this hasn't happened for the past 25 years in France. Thank you very much, Minister, for this interview.
Thank you very much.